Take a look at these two shots. One of them was captured on a brand new $1,100 smartphone, and the other was taken with a $500 mid-range device, the Galaxy Z Flip7 and the Pixel 9a. But the question is, which one do you like better? Well, in this case, I went to Instagram to find out, and 52% of you voted in favor of the Pixel. Now, personally, I'd expect a little bit more from the Galaxy Z Flip, since this phone costs more than double of what you'd have to pay for the Pixel 9a, but we do have 9 more blind camera samples in this video, so we're gonna find out which of these two devices comes out ahead. Now, despite the dramatic difference in prices between these two devices, the camera hardware here is pretty decently matched. The Galaxy Z Flip7 has a 50 megapixel primary camera that's paired with a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera on the outside of the phone, and then a 10 megapixel selfie camera on the inside with 4K 30 video captured from all 3 cameras. Now, with this being a flip phone, that means you can capture selfies and videos of yourself with the 2 exterior cameras as well, using that cover display to film yourself. And then we have the Pixel 9a, which has a 48 megapixel primary camera and 2 13 megapixel sensors, one for the ultra wide on the back and then the other for the selfie camera up front. And here you also get 4K video at 30 FPS from all of the cameras, which is pretty impressive for a $500 smartphone, because a lot of competing devices at this price range typically still give you 1080p video from that selfie camera. The lighting conditions for this selfie were a little bit tricky, as I'm standing in a parking garage, which is a little bit dark and the sun's shining in just from one direction. While the top picture does look a little bit more dramatic, you guys overwhelmingly chose the bottom one, which has racked up 84% of the votes, giving the Pixel 9a an early lead over the Galaxy Z Flip 7.
When it comes to video capture here, starting off with the ultra-wide cameras on both of these devices, the Samsung doesn't have quite as wide a field of view as the Pixel 9a does, but bumping into that main sensor, this is always where you're going to get the best video possible out of both of these devices. And then of course we don't have a dedicated zoom camera, but we do have the option to do a 2x digital crop right here in the middle. You can of course go in further, but you don't really want to get a whole lot closer just because you're just bumping into that resolution. And then video capture from the selfie cameras on both of these devices captured in 4K at 30 FPS. So the Samsung device can go all the way up to 4K 60 frames per second. But one of the things that the Flip is really good at though is being able to use that cover display with the main cameras on the back. So being able to capture selfie video, which I'm going to show you right now. And here we go, video capture from the main camera on the cover display with the Flip versus the selfie camera on the Pixel 9a. Now, of course, this isn't something that you would be able to do on a Pixel device just because it's not a foldable, but having the option to do this really makes the Flip stand out compared to a lot of devices, just because it makes capturing selfie video just on a whole nother level, because the video quality is going to be a lot better because that main sensor, and even being able to use the ultra wide, is a step up compared to any selfie camera on any device.
As we saw with the last blind camera samples, this one is pretty definitive as well, with 73% of the vote going to the bottom picture. The one on top, to be fair, does look a little bit washed out, while the one on the bottom captured with the Pixel 9a just captures a little bit more of the warmth of the summer day. But then we flip things around to the rear cameras for this next shot. The score is a little bit closer, 65% of the votes going to that bottom picture. That does have a little bit better dynamic range, as you can see in the clouds there. But for this one, the score actually goes in the favor of the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. With these blind camera samples going from the selfie cameras to the rear cameras, it's pretty interesting to see how both devices really shift their white balance and color tone so dramatically from one camera to the other.
Now, simply looking at the screens, I'm having a hard time distinguishing which one's capturing better photos and videos, just because the foldable display on the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip isn't quite as bright as what you get on the Pixel. But let me know in the comments which one you prefer. And also, with the changing from light to dark and light again with the selfie cameras, the contrast with the sky up there, it's kind of hard to see, but I think the Samsung is doing a little bit better there. There's just a little bit too much shadow and contrast on my face on the Pixel device, but we'll have to wait and see how it actually looks like on the computer once we're done editing.
And then for our final blind camera comparison in daylight hours between these two smartphones, we do have a shot that's pretty similar, I'd have to say, on both devices in terms of the detail and also the dynamic range. And that's reflected in the scores as well, 57 to 43 in favor of the bottom shot. But this time around, the Galaxy Z Flip7 comes out ahead. Now, I am starting to recognize a little bit of a trend here with what you guys are picking in these camera comparisons, typically skewed towards the warm tones, which is definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye out on for the rest of the video.
And now that it's gotten dark, it's time for some low light tests with both of these devices to test out how they perform when lighting conditions aren't really ideal. The Samsung does seem to be a little bit brighter here with the selfie camera, but that seems to be overexposed just a little bit, blowing out the highlights there on my face, while the Pixel is exposing just a little bit better. But time to fold the Flip and see how it performs with the cover display and the main camera on the back. And this here's a look at the main camera on the back of the Flip versus the selfie camera on the Pixel 9a. Honestly, it looks like it's really, really close in this comparison. You do get that shallower depth of field with that larger sensor on the Flip, but let me know what you think of these results. I think the Samsung might have its work cut out with it for it when compared to the Pixel 9a in low light. For some video capture side by side on these two devices in low light conditions, starting off with the ultra wide camera, then bumping into that main sensor, getting in just a little bit closer, and then of course we don't have a dedicated telephoto, so we will just bump in on this main sensor with a 2x digital zoom here. On screen, it does look like the Pixel is coming out a little bit ahead here, being able to pull in more dynamic range, as you can see at the facade of that building, and a lot less noise in the darkness of the sky.
And with looking at these low light shots on these two devices, we do have some blind camera comparisons here. Starting off with this selfie. This one here is definitely well lit, with the top image looking though like it's a little bit overexposed and definitely a lot softer than it should. But I honestly wasn't expecting the votes to be this dramatic in favor of the bottom shot here, which again was captured with the Pixel 9a. It seems Google really kind of has it down when it comes to capturing selfies. And for this flower picture, the one on the top is just a lot more crisp, showing off more of the details in the flower petals and the leaves, giving the Pixel 9 yet another win with a score of 89% for this one. I'm sure we can all agree that this shot here is a little bit tricky because of the lights on the inside of the shot, but also that bright white sign on the outside, which is really only legible in the top picture, being completely blown out in the bottom one. So naturally, the votes here went to the top picture, which was actually captured on the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip7. And then for this little figurine that was captured in the store window at 2x from that main camera in portrait mode on both phones. The colors here though are completely different, and you can really see that. And the shot also gives us a closer look at that artificial background blur that you get when capturing images in portrait mode. And while I like the bottom one a little bit more just because it has more detail to it, the votes here went in favor of the top picture, giving the Samsung phone 2 wins in a row. And for this final shot, I'm going to close things off with another low light selfie. These two really went to the extremes, with one giving off some grayish tints and the other really just leaning into those oranges from the street lights. But again, the Pixel 9a came out on top here with another win, closing out this blind camera comparison between these two devices with a final score of 6-4. Now, personally, I wasn't surprised by the results here, since the Galaxy Z Flip7 really has subpar cameras for being a smartphone that costs more than $1,000. So if you want to choose between these two and you're just looking at the cameras, the Pixel 9a is definitely my choice. If you want to see another blind camera comparison, be sure to check out my Nothing Phone 3 versus iPhone 16 Pro, and I promise you the results won't disappoint. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.